Then I had a period of like nearly 3 months where I was on my own and I was celibate, and that was really hard. Like, you wouldn't think that something like that would affect you, you know, just from not having sex, but I was just crying all the time. I felt really suicidal. I didn't have, you know, just anything to take that pain away. My childhood was, I'd say, quite hard in a lot of ways. My mum was a single parent. You know, she was a great mum and everything like that, just, you know, doing her best. But my dad was too ill to work and things, so she did everything on her own, you know. My dad had, well, he still has, schizophrenia. So he was in and out of psychiatric hospital. And yeah, he like tried to kill himself a couple of times. I mean, when I look back now, I think that's probably where like my insecurities and like low self-esteem come from, possibly. Unconsciously, you just think, well, what's wrong with me?
How old were you when you think you started to become aware of your dad's schizophrenia?
I always knew, really, because he was in and out of hospital from when him and my mum divorced and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I always knew because he'd like, you know, talk to himself a lot, and he was really paranoid and jealous and things like that. I didn't grow up getting that love that I needed from my dad, even though he loved me and I loved him. It wasn't the, I suppose, secure, protective love that you, as I guess, need as a child. And I think I found a way early to, you know, I think I knew really early that I had like that women had a sexual, like, it was something men responded to, you know. I mean, I lost my virginity really early. I was like 12, so obviously that's quite young. I think that kind of sexualised me at a young age, if you know what I mean. So I think I saw that, you know, that's something that men like. And I just think I just realised that early, and I just kept capitalising on it, if you know what I mean, because it made me feel in control and like I had power over something instead of feeling powerless, if that makes sense.
And would you say, was it about the age of 12 that you started to become aware of your sexuality?
I think it was younger than that, I really do, if I'm honest. 8 or 9 or something like that, probably. I got bullied at school around that time when I started to become sexual. I guess because I was sexual before everyone else, people didn't, I don't know, like, people called me a slag and things like that, and I got bullied really badly at school.
How did your relationship with your sexuality progress from that point?
Yeah, it just went, I guess, more and more extreme as time went on, if that makes sense. Just, I knew that there was something not right with me because I just had sex with so many more people than like all my friends and things like that. I think I was just looking for that connection. I think that's what a lot of addiction is just, you're just trying to find that connection with that real connection, I suppose, that you're just craving.
And did you have relationships in these years at school?
Yeah, I had a boyfriend at one point. I always had like relationships. I think I found it hard to be on my own, but then very on-off relationships, very unstable relationships. So I'd be in a relationship, then we'd split up, and then I'd go on like a massive spree of just like having sex with loads of people, then we'd get back together and, you know, that kind of thing. One thing I always was is honest with the people I was with. Like, I wouldn't like stay and be unfaithful, but I'd just leave and then go and do that and then go back. And it was like that backwards and forwards kind of thing. But I just, you know, find a way to attract people who just, you know, weren't emotionally available, I think.
At what point do you think you started to realise that perhaps you had an unhealthy relationship with sex?
I mean, when I was younger, it was just really fun, and it was really fun at first, you know. I loved it. I was just going and doing loads of crazy things and having loads of new experiences, and that side of it was really fun. And in the beginning, like it always is, I suppose, with every addiction, I knew it's the attracting, I think, bad, you know, people. I think that's when I knew, because I mean, my life was a bit out of control anyway, but I was happy with it in my 20s because I didn't have any responsibilities, you know. But then I got pregnant with my first son. I just instantly fell in love with him. And I think that's the only time that I've been truly, truly happy. For the first 7 and a bit weeks of having him, but then he passed away. So that was very hard, because I think after that is when I think I noticed my addiction got quite bad. I mean, I got diagnosed with PTSD after that anyway. Because he was in my arms when he died and stuff like that. And so after that, like, life was pretty bad for a long time. I think that's when I really started to, like, get really codependent, you know, and tried to reach out for just, relationships. And then I went on loads of, you know, sex binges again.
After you lost your son, at its worst point, how many times a week were you having sex? How many different people were you sleeping with?
A lot. I don't know. Like 20, something like that. Yeah, like in a week. It wasn't necessarily the sex that was the most, like, damaging thing, because I was always pretty careful in terms of protection and things like that. I was quite smart in that way, I suppose. It was more the codependency side of it. I think that's what ultimately is behind it, is you're dependent on other people, but then you don't want that commitment at the same time. So, like, if you have sex with different people, you don't have to get too close. You don't want people to get too close, but then you're so scared of being alone. And I think, like, if you're not getting that attention all the time, that's like your fix, if you know what I mean. Like, you need other people to tell you that you're all right, 'cause you don't feel it yourself. If you choose people who aren't right for you, then, I don't know, you don't have to commit yourself. I think that's ultimately what's at the core of it. I think you're scared to let yourself be vulnerable and love properly and be loved, because you don't feel like you deserve it.
And how was your emotional well-being during these years?
Oh, bad. Yeah, really bad. Just up and down, like, all the time. I mean, I've been diagnosed with BPD as well, which can cause ups and downs and volatile relationships. And I think a lot of people who have sex addiction or love addiction have got BPD, I would say. If you sense a relationship ending, it could trigger you into, I don't know, like a suicidal behaviour. Suicidal behaviours is a thing as well on there. Or even thinking about suicide a lot and that kind of thing. But yeah, I would say that most people who have this addiction have got that, if not all.
Did you feel any notions of guilt or shame around?
Yeah, because I put myself in dangerous situations and situations that I didn't, you know, like, I didn't want to have sex with certain people and I still did, and things like that.
Were you honest with the people in your life about what you were going through?
I think people in my life know. Yeah, I think they do. I've always been honest with my mom and things like that, and she's yeah, she accepts me for who I am and things. When I used to go to the addict groups, there were lots of people who were hiding lots of things, and I think that's quite common. But I think because I've always been quite a brazen person anyway, do you know, who puts herself out there, I think because I've been like that for so long, I didn't really feel like I needed to hide anything.
What do you think addiction is?
It's a powerlessness, isn't it? And I think a feeling of you don't deserve to be happy sometimes. I think that's underlying sometimes. And also I think there's an element of like punishing yourself as well.
You mentioned your father at the beginning. I suppose at this point it was still searching for something in that relationship that was lacking?
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what we're doing for the rest of our adult lives, is trying to heal those wounds from childhood. And I think relationships give us an opportunity to do that.
For how many years do you think that this kind of addiction was consuming a lot of your life?
I wouldn't say I'm cured or anything like that, but I'd say probably 20 years. Like, I'd say it's only recently, you know, in the last 5 years or whatever, where I've really taken it seriously to, you know.
And in those 20 years, what would you say has been the hardest point for you?
Just the judgment from other people, I think, is one of the worst things. I think people judge sexuality in a different way. I think it's wrong to judge any addict, because 9 times out of 10, the person who's judging is addicted to something else. I think sex is frowned upon, and it's made to be this shameful thing if you've had sex with loads of people.
Why do you think it is viewed differently to other addictions?
I don't know. I think they're all pretty. I think they're all quite judged. I think I wouldn't say it's more. I just think it's probably a lot. It's, you know, sex is something that most people have and enjoy, isn't it? Whereas you can't just cut sex out like you could do with alcohol or drugs. I suppose it's a bit more. I think some people probably think it doesn't exist, or, you know, it's not a real addiction.
And so that journey to shifting away your behaviour, how did you start that?
Well, I started off with some questionnaires, and then I started going to like group therapy, and had like a sponsor and stuff like that. Then I had a period of like nearly 3 months where I was on my own and I was celibate, and that was really hard. Yeah, like I got like flu symptoms, and it was really strange how it affected me. Like, you wouldn't think that something like that would affect you, you know, just from not having sex, but that's how it made me feel. And I'd lost my crutch, so my emotions were really bad. Like I was just crying all the time. I felt really suicidal. I didn't have, you know, just anything to take that pain away. I'm a big believer in therapy. Yeah, that's helped a lot as well. I think everyone should have therapy, because it just helps you make sense of what you've been through and gets it all out there, you know.
And how long ago was it that you started to build away from the addiction?
Well, since I met my partner now, who's called Matt, I just knew I wanted to be committed, it was really weird for me being committed and not, because I'd always had these on-off relationships, so I was like committed, and then, but when you're committed to like one person, yeah, you've got nowhere to run or hide, do you know what I mean? So all my vulnerabilities came up then. So that in itself has been challenging, but I'm so glad that I've stuck by that and stood with it, because it just gets better and better, and things come up to be healed all the time.
You feel like the addiction kind of never really goes away. It's always going to be part of you. If you have urges and impulses now, how have you learnt to manage that?
Well, I mean, I'm quite lucky. Like, we have a really good sex life in my relationship. So we're sexually compatible, I think, and we're quite matched. I think that's important, like, to find someone. I think that's important in general for relationships, to find someone who you're quite matched with on that level, I think. If I don't feel like, for whatever reason, we've not had as much sex as what we normally do, or I do start to get, like, really panicky, and I'm like, right, I need attention, or I think, like, people have, like, a couple of addictions or a couple of things that they find comfortable, and mine's food as well, so I just end up eating loads when I'm not having enough sex, and then I put weight on, so that's a bit annoying.
And you can recognise it in yourself when you feel...
Yeah, I think you've got to resist that urge to go into your old behaviours. You've just got to find a way to talk to yourself, whether you talk yourself around or you just say, you know, come on, this is just that, you know, you don't have to act upon that. You can be strong, and just, like, you know, being friends with yourself, I suppose, is just speaking to yourself in a nice way. Like, we can do that. We speak to ourselves all the time, don't we? So it may as well be something empowering.
And with addiction, a lot of people say that, you know, people are born with an addictive personality.
Yeah.
Do you believe that, or do you think it's something that...
I think some people are, but then I think there's other people who develop it just through their upbringing, who aren't born like that, but just become like that because they've seen their parents do it, or, you know, something's happened in childhood that just where they feel worthless for whatever reason.
How would you want people's perception of sexuality to shift in society generally?
I just wish people would stop shaming other people for sexuality. I don't think it's fair.
Do you think that it's true that more men are addicted to sex than women?
No, I don't think so. I wouldn't say so. I don't think men and women are as different as what we're made out to believe. That's my personal belief. I think we're more similar than what we think. One of the indicators of sex and love addiction is staying in or returning to an abusive relationship, you know, and women can be just as abusive as what men can. I believe that too. So I think no, I wouldn't say so. I know men in general watch more porn and things like that, but that's just one part of it. Women can be more codependent. The needs and the problems the same both ways, I think.
And why have you decided to share your experiences?
I want other people to know that they can have the life they want, that, you know, don't spend all your time just in that addiction. Like, addiction distracts you from your life purpose and what you're here to achieve and do. You know, you've got that energy to go and be successful in whatever that is that you're meant to do. So sometimes we just indulge in these addictions because, you know, we're masking that pain rather than just dealing with it. When you stop distracting yourself with that, you can go and do what you want to do. You'll have so much more time and energy, and you'll feel more clear and pure in yourself, and you can feel like you deserve, you know, what it is that you really want, and you can go out and get it.
How is your relationship with your dad now?
Oh, yeah, good. Like, he's in, like, a home now, and he's, you know, cared for, and he's on his medication, you know. Yeah. You know, he's got an illness that he didn't ask for, and he's, you know, as upsetting as some of my childhood experiences are when I think about them now, like, it's not his fault, you know what I mean? It's just he had an illness, and, you know, I can't hate him for that. I love him. I've always loved him.
And with your sons, will you be honest with them about your experiences and
when they're older?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I try and be, like, as honest and open with my kids as I can be, because I want them to know that, that they can overcome things, and, you know, it's all right if My son, my eldest son, he's very much like me, and so I think he'll have something, you know, So I think he'll be glad that he can ask me for advice and things, you know.
And looking back, and I suppose at that younger version of Laurie that was really struggling all those years ago, what would you say to her?
That you're stronger than what you think. That it's not your fault and you're not responsible for anybody else. What would I tell her? Just that she's loved and that she doesn't, it's not about getting that love from anyone else. You can get that from you and your relationship with God and the world. And I think that's ultimately the most important relationship, I think, is that. So I think that's what I'd tell her.
I decided to put it all on one bet, one horse in one horse race, the Cheltenham Gold Cup in March 2018. And if that horse won, I would have won that money back. I had the intention to pay everybody back. If it didn't win, it had literally become a matter of life and death, and I was going to go and kill myself.